Hey guys, and welcome back to this new video. If you're looking for a good lens for wildlife and nature photography, you're absolutely right in this video. Because today I want to talk about the Sigma 150 to 600mm contemporary lens. And I want to talk a lot about my experiences, what I think about this lens, what issues I have, and what is good about this lens. And then in the end I will tell you if I can recommend to buy it for yourself if you're looking for a good lens for wildlife photography. So if you're more the type who wants to hear a lot of facts about this lens, so how exactly the focus works, if you want to compare the sharpness with this lens and another lens, you're not right in this video. I more want to talk about my experience. But in any case, I want to tell you some basics at first about this lens. So right now it costs 949 euros here in Germany, and it weighs 1.93 kilos, so almost 2 kilos, and that's quite heavy. So it's really big and heavy, and when I put it out of the box the first time, I was quite shocked about that it's so big, because when I had a look in videos it always looked way smaller and not that heavy. So yeah, just that you know what we're talking about. The close focal distance, I'm not sure if this is correct, the correct English word for this, is 2.8 meters. So you can go 2.8 meters to your subject so that it is in focus. And that's quite good, because when you have 600 millimeters focal length and you can go 2.8 meters close to the subject, you can also photograph some bigger insects, for example dragonflies or butterflies, and that's quite really nice. And the last thing, the filter diameter of this lens is 95 millimeters, so that's quite really huge. If you want to attach a pole filter, for example, it can be difficult and especially expensive to buy one. So yeah, just that you know. But now let's talk about the more interesting facts about this lens. The first thing I want to talk about is the aperture. At 600mm you have an aperture of 6.3. And yeah, what should I say? That's not good, but it's also not bad. Sometimes in the evening when I'm sitting in the forest and I'm waiting for deer, it's not really enough, because if it's getting darker you have really fast and high ISO, but you have to keep in mind that this lens costs nearly 1000 euros. And if you compare it, for example, with the Canon RF 100 to 500mm lens, that costs 3000 euros. And this lens has an aperture of, I think, 7.3, so one aperture lower than this lens. And yeah, because of this I think that's quite a really good aperture at 600mm. I also want to talk about the buttons here. So the first button up to here is where you can choose between manual focus, autofocus, and something between. So I'm not sure how this is called in English, but if this button is here in the middle, you have like a autofocus, but you can correct the autofocus manually. I never used this, so that's kind of useless, but it's nice to have if you want to use it. So the second button here is a button where you can choose if you only want to focus, for example, 2.8 meters to 10 meters, and then 10 meters to endless, and the full area. And this is really useful, because when I'm sitting in my height I don't want to focus more than 10 meters, because the perches are closer than 10 meters, and then I can choose 2.8 to 10 meters and the autofocus does not need too long to focus. Then there is the third button, and with it you can activate the stabilization. There are two modes. The first mode is the normal stabilization, where the image is stabilized in two axes, so horizontal and vertical. And the second mode is where the image is only stabilized in the vertical direction. So if you want to make like, I'm not sure how this is called in English. So if you want to have a slow shutter speed and you're moving your camera with the subject, for example a flying bird, this is quite useful. And then there is the last button, and this is a button where is no function at first, but you can buy a little station that you can put behind your lens. So it's like a little adapter for your lens to connect your lens with your computer, and then you can say with the software what function you want to have on this button. But I do not use this because I don't have this little station. Another thing is the image quality. And I know that's a huge theme, and I don't want to talk too much about this because I think in today's time there is not really a lens from Sigma or from Canon or from Nikon or whatever that is really unsharp. And I think that's not the most important thing in wildlife photography, that you have the sharpest lens. But what I noticed is that this lens is really sharp when you are not too far away from the subject you want to photograph. So for example, when I'm sitting in my height and I'm photographing the birds 2 or 3 meters in front of me, then the photos are really sharp, so I can say nothing to that, because that's really good. But when I photograph, for example, a deer here now, that is, I don't know, 200 meters away, and you zoom in a bit, it's not that sharp. And that is something where you notice the difference between this 1,000 euro lens and, for example, the 12,000 euro lens. So for example the 600mm lens from Canon. But sometimes that's a bit annoying, because when I'm out, and especially when I photograph deer or mammals which are more far away, it's not possible sometimes for me to get that sharp photos. But it's definitely not that I cannot work with it, so it's not that the photos are completely blurry or something like that. Okay, but now we talked about the aperture and the image quality, and now I want to talk about the focus. And what should I say? It's quite hard to say because I have the EOS R, and the EOS R has not the best autofocus, but I think the focus of this lens is quite good. Most often I use it with the single spot autofocus, and that works most of the time really good. And in the last days I was photographing some birds of prey in flight, so a red kite. I can show you the photo here. And then I used the tracking focus, and that also worked quite really good. So the focus is quite fast. It's not the most fast focus I've ever seen, but it's definitely enough, and especially when you have no R5 or R6 II or something, or a camera that is really good in focusing, it's enough. But one thing I cannot really understand, and that's a question for you, so probably you have this lens yourself. Sometimes, or let's begin a bit different. You know, when you're in the video mode of the camera, and for example I have the focus here, so really close, and then I'm focusing with the autofocus probably 200 meters far away. Then it's really slow, because you want a slow focus in your video. But sometimes when I'm using this lens in the photo mode, so when my camera is in the photo mode, I have the same slow focus, and I've no idea why this is like that. Because when I turn the camera then off and on again, it's the fast focus, and I've absolutely no idea. I could found nothing in the internet, or I tried out a lot, but I cannot fix the problem. And sometimes it's really annoying, because when I see, oh, back there is a deer, and I have to be fast and I have to focus, and it needs 5 seconds until the deer is in focus. Probably the deer is already away. So if you have a solution, or if you have the same problem, please let me know in the comments below, because that is something that is really annoying sometimes. Another thing about the focus, or not really about the autofocus, but about focusing manually, is that this wheel here, where you can focus, this wheel here, is really small. And I cannot really understand why this is so small, because it's quite hard to touch it and to move it, especially because this lens is quite heavy, and when I have it like that, it's really difficult, and it does not feel that good to focus with such a small wheel. And that is something I cannot change. It's okay, but it's a bit annoying. Okay guys, real quick something else. In my last video I announced a little series here on my channel where I want to have a look at your photos and I want to give feedback to them. And if you haven't seen this video, check this out, it's up here. But to say it real quick, you can send me your photos to this email address here, or it's also linked in the description below, and then I talk about your photo in one of the next videos. And if you want to know some details, check out this video here. But now I would say let's continue with this video. I talked all the time about things I do not really like on this lens, but something I like is the stabilization, because that is, in my opinion, quite good. My Canon EOS R has no in-body stabilization, and when I'm shooting, or most often I'm shooting out of my hand, and then it's quite not that shaky. Of course it's the image is shaking a bit because it's 600mm and I have no in-body stabilization, but all in all that's quite really good. And I heard before I bought this lens that the stabilization of the sports version is better, and that's possible. I cannot talk about that because I had the sports version of this lens not in my hand, but I'm happy with the stabilization in this lens too, and that's quite okay. Another thing I really have to appreciate about this lens is that it is really waterproof. So I photographed a few times in the rain now, and sometimes it rained really a lot, and until now this is working perfect. So I hope in the future it's working same as now. And one tip I can give you is, so if you are on 600mm, the lens is going out a bit like that. And when you're photographing now and it's raining, and the rain is also coming down here, so on the area which is going into the lens when you're on 150mm, you should definitely not put it like that when there's water on it, because then the water is going into the lens and then it can be broken. But if you leave it like that and there's some water, and afterwards when you pack it in your, when you put it into your backpack, or when you're at home and you make it dry, then everything is okay, and this you can definitely photograph with this lens in rain. Okay, I talked now a lot about this lens, but I think now it's time to draw a conclusion. And what should I say? It's just a really nice lens, especially for the price. I think there is no other lens in this price area, and 600mm, where you get 600mm and such a good image quality. And by the way, when I bought this lens, I also thought if I should buy the sports version, but I'm really happy that I did not bought it, because the sports version is way heavier, and the only things that are better is the autofocus, and it's more waterproof, but I think this is still enough waterproofed. So yeah, if you're thinking or if you're struggling if you should buy the contemporary or the sports version, I could definitely recommend to buy this one because it's cheaper, it's not that heavy, and it's almost same good. So if you're looking for a lens for wildlife photography, and probably when you're starting, or even if you're photographing since 3 years or however, this is still a really good decision to buy, and you can do nothing wrong with, because yeah, the image quality is good, and I took a lot of photos with it right now, until this day, and there was no situation where I was really struggling with it. Of course, sometimes I was struggling a bit with the focus, but that's more about my EOS R. So I hope you got a nice overview about this lens, and I will link it down in the description below. And now I would say, if you want to know about something about this EOS R, check out this video here. And otherwise, I would be really happy if you have a look at my channel, because I post the behind the scenes videos of my photos here. And then I would say we see us next Saturday or in this video. Have a great day. See you out there. Bye.